Today is Thanksgiving, and I'm spending it here in my car.
How the f did I become homeless? Stay tuned to find out.
I'm homeless, and I used to be on the honor roll.
Now I'm in college, and I'm living in my car.
Did you know that the fastest growing demographic of homelessness is the baby boomer generation?
Today we're taking a look at the harsh reality of homelessness. We'll be watching videos of people sharing their experiences living on the streets. It's a tough topic, but it's important. Let's see challenges faced by those experiencing homelessness. And yeah, one more thing, subscribe.
We're back. What's up, y'all? Missed you guys. So, just another day that I decided that I wanted to film what's on my mind, record a couple of thoughts that I have, and try to make sense of things that I see happening around me, as well as share some of this stuff going on that I'm observing happening in my community, in my country, and some random thoughts that I have about the situation overall with you. Recently, I've seen a growing trend in the amount of people that are making social media content about the state of poverty going on within the states of America. The one thing that I'm observing is that throughout the various platforms such as YouTube, whether it be Instagram, TikTok, which I don't have, but apparently that's a big one. But there's this growing trend of people that are posting videos of themselves, whether they have become homeless, are soon to be homeless, and kind of just sharing some of their personal situations. What I'm noticing is that more and more, the amount of people that I'm seeing, younger families that are making videos of themselves recently having become or are homeless. Now, a lot of these videos I'm seeing are being filmed by people who are living in their vehicles all throughout the country. A lot of these videos I'm seeing are coming from different states. One of the big main culprits is the state of California. But I know California is not the only state that is having this type of a crisis. The problem is it's spread out between all the 50 states. And what's crazy is I wanted to look up this number for myself to find out statistically how many homeless people are there in total in the United States of America. And the number that I was able to find or come across was somewhere in the area of 700,000. Now, there are two reasons as to why I think this is a completely inaccurate number. The first reason is that you cannot physically, there is no agency that walks around every single state, every single neighborhood in the United States of America and just counts people one by one, homeless people. You couldn't do it. It's not possible. Many people who are homeless are probably not registered. I mean, I don't think we even have such a thing as registering yourself as a homeless person. Not everybody who is homeless is on some kind of a government social program, social service. So it's hard to get a read on that. Many homeless people are completely unaccounted for, whether it being that they have no friends, no relatives, no family. Other people are simply just kind of slipping through the cracks, whether they're a young person that's going to school and living in their vehicle, or crashing at a friend's pad that doesn't necessarily identify as homeless, but technically is. And the second reason that I think that number is grossly inaccurate is the fact that there are over 360 million people living in the United States of America. Now, I think that number is a lot higher now, considering what we have seen over the course of the last 4 years of how many undocumented, unvetted, illegal immigrants that have been let into our country through our open borders over the course of the last 4 years, and then some. So I think that number is actually drastically higher. If I had to guess, that number is probably closer to 380, maybe 390, and upwards of 400 million people in total, counting US citizens and the undocumented. When you think about it, the fact that they have a registered amount from the census or whoever these agencies are that gather these numbers, these statistics, that they have registered officially of what we know about around 700,000 homeless Americans living within the country. And there are over 360 million people, and you're telling me that less than 1 million people are homeless? That can't be true. Even in the neighborhood that I live in, which is a nice, clean, middle-class working neighborhood, every time I go out to the grocery store or the supermarket, I can count on two hands how many homeless people I'm seeing. Just yesterday, I drove to the supermarket to pick up some groceries, and just as soon as I pulled into the parking lot, I saw a lady sitting on a curb alongside her two children, school-age children, who were sitting on the curb with her doing homework. Along with that, she had a baby stroller, would look to be like a newborn in her arms, with a sign out that said, "We are homeless, please help." Of course, we have this problem, and it's quite rampant here. A few days ago, another example, I went to go pick up dinner for my family at a takeout restaurant, and within minutes of me picking up my bag of food and hopping back into my vehicle, before I could even turn on the ignition, a homeless man was knocking on the glass of my car, on the window, asking me for money. Now, make of that what you will, but it seems to me that the problem is far more rampant than we can actually imagine. And that, coupled along with the rising and uncontrollable inflation that we have been experiencing here in the United States over the course of the last several years, which has been getting worse as far as the cost of household goods, groceries, which is a big one. I don't understand really what, the next administration that's coming into office is really going to do to address it. Now, there have been some things that the Republicans have mentioned as far as what they are planning in their course of action to do in regards to deportations, cleaning up the streets, so to speak, closing the border, and addressing this inflation, this out of control inflation. But it leaves me wondering, and it leaves me a bit skeptical as to how they're going to do it. Because it wasn't like we just woke up overnight and all of a sudden the cost of living was basically out of reach for most people. It wasn't like houses, all of a sudden that most people that are now, working 2-3 jobs to survive were all of a sudden locked out of being able to purchase housing or being able to afford to purchase a home. It didn't happen overnight. This has been something that's been coming and transpiring for many years, and it's ultimately led us to where we are today. Now, what's strange to me and what's crazy, what's really hard to wrap my mind around, is all the while this is all happening, we have another month or so until Trump enters the White House and officially affirms the presidency, his role as commander-in-chief. All this time, it feels like it's forever almost, because this last month of waiting for the Democrats to exit the White House and for the Republicans to step in, it feels almost like an eternity. While this limbo is currently happening, the Democrats, they decided that the last remaining amount of people who have been trying to enter our country, to allow them just to bum rush the hell out of the border and let in as many people as they can with the limited amount of time that they have left until the next administration takes over, which it's really hard to wrap your mind around. One of the things that I've been battling with in my head and just debating and discussing for a long time now, ever since I made my first video about this idea that had popped into our minds about potentially moving to Moscow, Russia, after I had met my father. When you think about why people leave their country, there are many reasons for it. Oftentimes, it's the lack of opportunity, repression, whether political, or they're trying to get away from some type of feelings that they have in regards to their freedoms being squashed or trampled on. And what I'm seeing here is that most people who are adequate people, who are intelligent people, don't move to other countries when those other countries are not in a good, when they're not in a good climate, meaning that there are certain things that are happening within the country. It could be political repression, it could be wars, it could be infringement, it could be a whole host of things. But generally, people who are financially wise, who are looking to better their prospects and better their lives, are not looking to run away into a country that has so many detrimental things going on. And so there's this argument that comes up often that I see in different forums, in different groups, even under the comments of some of my own videos, as to people saying, and it was even said to me, you know, why are you looking to move to Russia when you're simply running away from your own problems, and doing so isn't going to make your life any better? And this is something that I had to think about for a long time, because they're right, and it makes a lot of sense, which is ultimately why I came to the conclusion that for the time being, it's better for myself and my family to stay put where we are, where things are more or less stable in my own personal circumstances and situation, where we are homeowners, we both have an income where we're able to provide, put food on the table, and pay our bills, even though things have been really tight, and so on and so forth. But when I'm seeing people being coerced through these various organizations throughout our country, private groups and private organizations that are contracted, I think, by the higher ups, by the government, that are going out to these places in Mexico and all these impoverished countries where people are supposedly fleeing from. And when you're seeing these people flooding the United States, it makes me ask the question as to why are they coming here? People who immigrate usually don't make that decision lightly, and it's something that has been made. It's a decision that has been reached based upon adequate research, adequate time preparing, maybe perhaps even making multiple trips to the destination of choice. And it's not something that's taken lightly and just made on a whim, spur of a moment type of thing. I'm seeing lots of content in the YouTube space predominantly where there's a growing trend of people who are leaving the United States and moving to all these other countries, such as Thailand, the Philippines, parts of Eastern Europe, Serbia, Romania. And, you know, a lot of these people say that wherever they end up, and whenever they end up in these new countries, most of them aren't going there to start their lives over. Most of them are going there with the savings or the wealth or remote incomes that they have accumulated in order to stretch their money and essentially 5x and multiply their earnings potential so that they can also multiply their spending potential. Essentially saying that they can make their money last longer and stretch further in some of these other countries, which is also true. However, when we take a look at what's been happening with people flooding the United States and being let into our country via the open border, it makes me wonder, why are they coming here when our country is in such a state of political unrest, civil unruliness, so much reform happening, record-breaking inflation, record-breaking cost of living, where our own citizens really are having a hard time making ends meet in large numbers. Because more and more and more I'm seeing content popping up all over social media where people are becoming homeless. And so this situation makes me really wonder about the future of our country. And as somebody who's a parent, somebody who is raising a young child, to be able to not only survive, but in hopes of her thriving in this world, in this country, I am scared to think about what things are going to look like here within the next 20 years. And being a person who's always got by and relied on his intuition because of difficult circumstances in the ways that I was raised, coming from a single parent home, a mother who was mentally unstable, mentally ill, abusive. So that formed me into a person who's always had to look after himself and learn how to survive. When my first job was entering the U.S. military right after 9/11, during a very difficult period of our country's history, coming out and then after a few years, and then actually having no place to turn, having no physical or emotional support of any kind, having no family to turn to, and me experiencing poverty and homelessness firsthand for myself as a kid that just freshly came out of the military and now is living on the street, and now having to find and find solutions and work my way out of that situation, the nightmare that I was in, without any support and nobody to lend any kind of assistance of any kind. And now I'm seeing all these people are entering the United States, and where are they going? And so when I'm reading stories about illegal immigrants are receiving all kinds of aid, all kinds of financial assistance, welfare, EBT, food stamps, in some cases, thousands and thousands of dollars of taxpayer dollars. And if you think I'm just speculating, guys, the information's out there. It's all there on the internet. It's public knowledge. There are video reports on YouTube, on Instagram, reels and videos that have well documented illegal immigrants, by their own admission, basically stating how much support and how much money some of these people are receiving from the US government. And you know, it pisses me off because when I came out of the military and found myself on the streets of Brooklyn, New York, with no place to go, where I lived and slept on New York City subway trains and park benches, and found myself having showers in sprinklers of public parks because there was simply no other choice, or having to go to various facilities such as a low-cost gym membership, so that simply just so I could take a shower, because I had no other choice until I could get on my feet and get my life figured out and get myself into a situation where I could rent an apartment and maintain some sort of stable and gainful line of employment. It makes me feel sick that today we still have God knows how many people, how many US citizens, how many US veterans that have, ultimately signed and paid their dues to this country with their lives, with their blood, sweat, and tears, who came out and ended up in the same situation as I have once experienced, who are now living in squalor, in poverty, and in many cases, I see them on the streets, up and down the street, up and down the sidewalks, whenever I drive to do errands or pick up my daughter from school. And I see more and more that even in really, I wouldn't say affluent, but upper middle class neighborhoods, such as the one that I live in now, that this problem is becoming more noticeable, more widespread, and more right in front of our faces. And so when you hear stories like this and people coming in, you can't help but think, how long is this going to continue? And how long is this going to go on? And so if we're under the impression that Trump is going to get into office of power within the next month or so and put an end to it on day one, I'd like to be optimistic and think that, yes, this is something that is within the realms of probability of happening. The thing that I'm having a really hard time wrapping my own mind around now is, why aren't we shutting this shit down now? Coupled with the fact that our administration is printing up and sending out hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars to different conflict zones around the world, without taking a vote or asking the U.S. taxpayer whether or not they want their money going to these conflict zones and funding these endless, pointless wars, it really makes you wonder, does our government have our best interests in mind? And of course, the answer to that is no, it doesn't. And it's the classic age-old saying of the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, and there is no solution to the problem anytime soon or in sight at all. And so one of the things that I've been battling with internally is the fact that while I would like to remain optimistic about the state of the United States, the state of this country, the state of its future, while people around me, my neighbors, you know, kind of all walk around seemingly with their heads in the clouds as if nothing is wrong, as if nothing is going on, when I look deeper at people, I get a pretty good read on them. And whenever I'm out and about in public, running errands, and I look at the facial expressions of most people that I'm surrounded by, I notice that these people look very exhausted. They look tired. They look dead to me. They look hopeless. And when you look people in the eyes, it feels like they're empty. They're soulless. They're so distraught, so exhausted, so conditioned, so traumatized by what has been transpiring in this country over the span of the last decade or so, that I feel like people almost don't even understand that they have these traumas, that they have these symptoms of post-traumatic stress, where everybody I speak to, whenever I get a chance to speak to them, even the cashier at the supermarket that's checking me out and bagging my groceries, that people, you could tell by their gestures, by their facial expressions, and even by the tone of their voice, that they're becoming really neurotic and stressed out and anxious. And you know, people will tell me in the comments, I'm sure, that America's always had this problem of people being overstimulated and overmedicated. But it feels to me now that if you're a regular person living anywhere throughout the country and you haven't noticed this by now, the fact that more and more people seem to be completely on edge all of the time, untrusting of their neighbor, of each other, it just seems to me that if that's you and you feel that like everything is honky-dory and everything is fine and everything is going to be all right, I feel like you're naively optimistic about what's really going to be transpiring over the course of the next 5 to 10 years. And I feel like as more and more people get priced out of access to affordable housing, affordable rentals, affordable health care, and that's a big one. As for most of you who aren't aware, we just had a major shooting happen in New York where a CEO of United Healthcare was assassinated by this young guy. And as details, more and more details start to come out about this guy's backstory, the more I get confused, because you come to find out that the man, the suspect that they have in custody that has just been charged with the murder of this CEO, comes from an affluent family himself. An affluent family who's actually made a fortune and one of the businesses, one of their main businesses and main money makers was their dealings with the healthcare system. And so you have such a disconnect of people who don't even realize or recognize their own privilege of how fortunate they are in this country. And when these people begin to snap, you know, what does that say about the ordinary citizen that's waking up every morning and having to go to 1, 2, or 3, in some cases even more jobs, just in order to put food on his table and take care of the bills, where people are barely making it. You know, we have this problem in America where people live above their means. And that's something that's been happening here for a long time because it's a capitalistic society. And that's just kind of what we're sowing, what we're reaping out of the monster that we've created. But it seems to me now that those very same people who have been so accustomed to living well above their means and spending all of their money and living paycheck to paycheck are now struggling as well. It seems to me I'm living in a time where nothing really makes sense. It's like we're all living in this upside down world. And more I think about what the future is going to look like in regards to when my child becomes an adult and has to somehow make their way in this country. And so one of the conversations I've been having with my wife is, well, look, we're not leaving the United States to go move to Russia, because you don't just move from one country that has all sorts of problems to another country who is also now undergoing a very difficult period and a war to boot. Wouldn't be the best timing. And we looked at other areas. We looked at places like Thailand, parts of Eastern Europe. And all of these places seem to be good candidates for the fact that the money that I earn now, I can stretch a whole lot further there. But the dilemma that's created is, okay, so we move there, our money lasts longer, we find ourselves an apartment, what have you, move in, and what then? Do we just start enjoying life and forget about all this that's transpired and forget about ourselves and who we are and where we came from? You know, it sounds easier said than done. It's easy for somebody to say on paper that you should do X, Y, and Z, and it's going to make you so much happier. I think it might work for some people, but I think that to the average person who likes to think deeply on a deeper level and think more critically about the situation, I feel like escaping from one place and running away to another in hopes of finding some sort of a solution isn't always the ideal solution. And so I'm left with this dilemma of what the hell do we do? You know, a couple of years ago when I had this whole plan that my wife and I had both concocted of us moving to Russia and starting our lives again from scratch and taking our incomes that we have here and moving them over there and being able to start concentrating and focus more on our health and on our child and on ourselves individually and start living life again. It's something that we still want to do. But ideally, it's something that we'd want to do here, where we grew up, a place where we're already familiar with. And it seems like that's getting more and more impossible. And even as a family like mine, who is considered by all means a middle-class family with a decent, solid income that helps put food on the table and pay our bills, it feels like every passing day and each passing month especially, it's getting harder and harder for us to do that without having to think of new creative ways of perhaps finding a way to increase our incomes. And so what's the trade-off here? You know, do you work your life away for more money while spending less and less time worrying and focusing on your family, your child, your health, and being present and in the moment with them, rather than coming up with ways, all these crazy ways and concoctions of how you can earn an extra dollar? Or do you just call it quits and leave to one of these other countries where you can make your dollar stretch more? So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this matter. I'd love to hear people's opinions, because like I said, it's something that's been on my mind. And as the trend of poverty within the United States seems to grow, and more people are losing access to affordable housing, affordable rentals, affordable healthcare, the ability to put food on their tables, and more people are becoming destitute and homeless, and more families are having to choose between being able to pay their bills each month or affording to send their kids to school. What do we do, guys? I want to hear from the people that have successfully moved abroad from America, who have found new meaning in their lives and who have managed to make their lives better. I want to hear from people that are also realizing what we've been realizing for the past several years and are also moving away and moving out, or thinking about moving abroad to other countries. And I want to know about what countries you guys are considering moving to, because really I'm looking for some sort of a viable solution, because I know that ultimately that living in the United States of America and living this way as we are now is ultimately not sustainable for our well-being or our health. And that the only way that we can actually ensure some sort of a life past retirement is to save up money. We know that this no longer works. The advice that the generations that came before us and the advice that we've gotten from our parents while we were growing up no longer applies in most situations. So I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear your thoughts on the matter, the state of affairs, not just in our country, but throughout the world, because it seems to me, guys, it seems to me like the world is truly on fire. And where do you go? What do you do? How do you douse out the flame and find a solution? And I understand that happiness comes from within. And I'm not fool enough or naive enough to think, especially as a man, that I deserve or need to be happy. But what I do need, and what I do feel is deserved, is for my family, for my daughter to thrive and to feel happy herself. Just like any other family living within the United States of America. I mean, we all claim that we are a first world country after all. So why is it that more and more this first world country that we live in now is starting to feel like the third world? Anyways, guys, just a quick little update from me. I want to hear your thoughts, of course. If you like content like this, where I just kind of sit down and talk to you directly one-on-one, please leave a thumbs up on my video, leave a like. It shows support and definitely helps the YouTube algorithm to push my videos out so that I continue to make more. But in the meantime, guys, I appreciate your support. I appreciate you tuning in. Leave a thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you want, or don't. It's up to you. Leave a thumbs up and leave a comment. Share your opinion, share your thoughts on the matter, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.